Okay, we're going to run through different things that you're going to need for chapter 8, and what I am going to do is put it in an Excel document so you can easily see the functions that need to be done and those types of things. Okay, so the first thing for doing the first problem, we are going to be calculating our monthly inventory using a basic short form. So the first thing is we have our opening inventory, $1,500. Then we're going to add then we're going to add our purchases of $4,600. Then we end up with a subtotal, also known as goods available for sale. And this is going to equal the $1,500 plus the $4,600. Then we're going to less our closing inventory, which is $1,722, and this is our cost of food issued. Just to kind of help you see the separation of everything. There we go. This is the first. This relates to the first question, which is here. That ties into that one. Okay, now I'm going to drift into the second one. It has a little bit more detail. And no fail. Has a little bit more detail, but we're going to start pretty much the exact same way. So we're going to find our opening inventory. And our opening inventory is $22,687.40. And in case you're wondering, this example right here, this Word document, is in the course documents, located just below the materials for Chapter 8, and you can print that off and follow along with this. After we do that, we are going to add our purchases. And let's see, maybe I can do this in gray. How might I do that? Okay. So our purchases are going to be $68,543.36. So we had our opening inventory and our purchases. We're going to go ahead and create, and this is our goods available for sale. We're going to less our closing inventory, and you can see our closing inventory here. Our closing inventory is $20,963.71. And this is going to be our cost of food issued. That's going to bring us to our next set of things, which are going to be adjustments to our cost of food issued to help us figure out our cost of food consumed. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to look at any additions or things that are being transferred in. So we're going to add cooking liqueur. And if you notice over here, our cooking liqueur, that's a transfer in or an addition to our food cost, because that's something that we're getting from our kitchen, from our bar, and we're bringing it into a kitchen for food production. We also have to add any transfers from other units. And this is if you own, let's say, 3 or 4 units of the same kind of restaurant. So let's say you own 3 or 4 Burger King, Chick-fil-A's, whatever it may be, and you have to move product from one of your restaurants to the other. You need to account for that. Okay. Then now, once we have taken care of our additions, now we need to start taking the subtractions. So the first thing we want to look at is take away any kind of food to the bar. And we have here, we have food to bar, and this is any kind of food that we purchased through our food order that then we're going to use in the bar for bar production or bar sales. That's $296.35. After we do that, we want to see if we had any Stewart sales, and we don't have any of those. Then we want to see if there's any gratis to bar, or we can and here we do have gratis to bar, and that's $58.73. And we want to see after that if we have any promotions. And we do have some promotional expenses that we incurred. So we take that out. That's $81.17. Then we have transfers to other units. And that is going to equal $784.29. And once we've done that, now what we're going to do is we are going to calculate our cost of food consumed. So just to help you remember, we're going to take our cost of food issued plus our cooking liquor plus our transfers from other units, and we're going to subtract the food to bar, subtract any Stewart sales we had, subtract gratis to bar, subtract any promotional expenses, and then transfer to the other units. Now we have our cost of food consumed at $70,227.07. Now the next step, in order to find out our cost of food sold, we need to take away employee meals. So first thing we want to do is take away our exec meals, and this is going to equal $1,833, and we're going to multiply that by 0.31 because we're only going to value that at 31%. So basically we looked at our executive meals, and it only cost us as an establishment 31% of the sales value. So we're going to take that away, then we're going to less our breakfast meals, and we served 1,422 breakfast meals to our employees at 55 cents a piece. Then we're going to take away our lunch meals, and we sold 1,208 meals, and each one of those meals we value at 80 cents. And then less the dinners, and we sold 1,012 of those at $1.05 a piece. And now we have all of our employee meals accounted for. So we've just taken care of these items. And now this will help us get the actual cost of food that we sold to the public. So we take our cost of food consumed, less our executive employee meals, less our breakfast, our lunches, and our dinners. So the cost of food that we actually sold was $66,847.74. Now, once we do this, we move into our next step, which is going to be calculating inventory turnover. So just to kind of come over here, the first thing that you want to figure out is your average inventory. And this is where you are going to take your opening inventory plus your closing inventory and divide that by 2. This gives you your average inventory. Okay, once we figure out our average inventory, the way we figure our inventory turnover we take our cost of food sold and we divide that cost of food sold by our average inventory, and we get a number or index. This lets us know that we turned over our inventory roughly 3.06 times over that period. So that just tells us how often we flipped our inventory completely over and helped generate sales. So all of this information here it'll be gray, just like this one, to show the relationship between those two. Okay, now we're going to move into doing number 3. Number 3 deals with looking at valuing our inventory over a certain time frame. So the first thing we want to do is start putting together the materials from the standpoint of in like a nicely formulated chart. So the first thing I'm going to do is have the date, the transaction that took place, okay, the units, cost, and then I'm going to have an extension over here. So this kind of will help us start putting together things in that beginning aspect. So the date, we have 1/1, the transaction that took place. So our opening inventory. Oops, let's go ahead and move this. Okay, we had our opening inventory. We had 12 units of opening inventory at a cost of $1.05. So our opening inventory value for this product we're dealing with was $12.60. Okay. Now the next thing, and actually that's going to be, we're working with this one now. So let's see if I can find another color. I'll try and use that light blue here, or that turquoise. So then the next thing we did was on 1/5. And what we did was we had made a purchase of 18 units for $1.15. So our extension is our 18 units times $1.15 a unit. So we had $20.70 in those purchases. Our next one was on the 12th, and we made a purchase purchase another 18 units at $1.20 a piece for $21.60 total. Our next one, we are now dealing on the 19th. And we made a purchase of 12 units at $1.30 a piece. 26th of the month, we made a purchase of 6 units at $1.40 a piece for $8.40. Okay, so what we've done here is we created our subtotal. So what we have is we have our goods available for sale is going to be our opening inventory plus each one of our purchases. Okay. We also add up each of units, so we know when we dealt with this month, we had 66 units at a total of $78.90 available for sale. Okay, so now what we're going to do is, now that we've entered all this, ooh, darn it. Oh, okay, now that we've entered all this information in here, we look at the next thing, that our ending inventory was counted at 9 units. Oops. 31. That was, our ending inventory was at 9 units. Now the thing that we need to do is figure out how we're going to value our inventory, and there's 4 different ways that it can be done. So the first way it could be done, we're going to look at the first in, first out, which means we have to value our inventory starting counting from the bottom, if that makes sense. So what we have here is our opening inventory, and here I'll first do first in, first out is what we're going to do. So we have our opening inventory, and our opening inventory was at $12.60. Actually, I'll scratch that. FIFO method, we'll put that. So our opening inventory equaled 12 units at a value $12.60. Then we had made purchases and our purchases were all accounted for here. Add up all your purchases. This gives us goods available for sale. And the reason I'm showing you this right here, all inventory valuation will start the exact same way. We start with the opening inventory, purchases, goods available for sale. Now we need to figure out our closing inventory value. Now, we start counting from the bottom up, because with first in, first out, we make the process that everything that came in when we first bought it were the first items sold. So we start counting from the bottom. And what we need to do is account for these 9 different items. So our closing inventory here, we first start out with counting from the bottom. This last purchase, there are 6 there. So what we need to do is we need to value these 6 at the $8.40. Okay. Now we're still missing 3 items to account for. Now, where are these 3 items going to be located? We move to the next step. Now we have 12 items that we made in this purchase, but 3 of those are part of this 9 that are there. So what we do is we have 3 items at a value of $1.30 an item. So this is going to equal to 3 times the $1.30. So if you notice, here is what I'm dealing with. in our closing inventory. If you look at just these two lines, is going to be the value of our closing inventory. Here we account for the 9 items. So the value of our closing inventory is $12.30. Hopefully everybody can see this. I'm going to go ahead and highlight this. Let's see if I can do it in a that's not going to work. Yellow and a red right there. So here's our closing inventory, and first we get those 6 items tied to here at $1.40, gives us $8.40. Then the 6 we take away from the 9, so there's still 3 items to count. We got to get those 3 items out of this package of 12 at $1.30 a piece. Gives us $3.90. So our total value of our closing inventory using the first in, first out method is $12.30. Now when we come down here, you could say cost of food issued. What we would do then is we would take our goods available for sale minus the value of our closing inventory, and that ends up being $66.60. Okay, and this right here is using the first in, first out method. So let's see if I can find. You really don't have a lot of color options. I guess I'll use that pink. Oops. Okay, that's the first in, first out. Let's see if I can find a pink like that. Okay, so that's the first in, first out method. Now, we're going to move and start doing the last in, first out method. Okay, and everything starts the same. So the opening inventory and the purchases, this right here, all the way to goods available for sale, you can just copy that and basically paste that here. Because these, oops, opening inventory. Purchases. Okay, so right here everything is the same. Now we need to figure out, using our last in, first out, the closing inventory of those 9 items. So what we would do is, when it says last in, first out, we need to start valuing from the top. So we have 9 items that we need to value in our closing inventory. Okay, and if you look, these 9 items are going to be located here in this top. So what we want to do is, we're accounting for 9 of those items, and they are valued at $1.05 a piece, because we're getting them from the top. Because using the last in, first out, we're making the assumption that we got all of these, and the last set of items that we purchased were the first ones that we sell to the public. So our closing inventory value is $9.75. And what we're going to do is a cost of issue. We follow the same procedure. Goods available for sale, less our closing inventory, $69.45. Now if you notice, depending on which method you use, you end up with a different value for for your cost of food issue. Okay, so depending how you value, you're going to end up with a different number, and that different number is going to cause you to end up having a different profitability number and everything at the end when you start calculating. Now here we're going to use weighted average, and this one is a little bit simpler, because in order to figure out the weighted average, what you do is you come here to this line and you literally just take the average cost of everything that you've done as far as your goods available for sale. So for your weighted average, that's going to equal the 78.90 divided by the 66 units, and that lets you know that you're going off of an average of $1.20 per unit. So here for our weighted average, again, our opening inventory, we have the 12 units, and the value is $12.60. The purchases, 54 units, and that was at $66.30. Goods available for sale, the two together, and now our closing inventory, we're dealing with the 9 units, and each one of those units is valued at $1.20. Oops. 9 times $1.20, so that's $10.80. So our cost of food issue is going to equal $78.90 minus the $10.80 at $68.10. And if you notice here, using the weighted average, we end up with yet another value for our cost of food issue. So the beginning parts are all the same. Opening inventory, purchases, and goods available sale, those are all the same. But what you find is that how you value your closing inventory, depending on the method, results in a different cost of food issue. Now this last one here, the last purchase price, again, opening inventory, 12 units, $12.60, that's the same. Purchases, $66.30. Goods available for sale is the sum of the two. And I'm doing this each time separately just so you can see that these beginning parts are the same. Now we have our closing inventory, and what we are doing here with our closing inventory, we have the 9 units, and we are using our last purchase price. The last set of purchases we made for that month were $1.40. So what we would do is, for the last purchase price, we would just value each of the cans in inventory at that last purchase price. And this is done just to reflect the current market value. A lot of people feel this is the most accurate and the best way to do things. Another way that is a little bit more accurate is the actual purchase price. But the actual purchase price. So whatever you bought it at, if you marked it when you received it, you can actually value that inventory at that. Now the only problem with that is if you have something that was left in inventory for a while, and now it's 2 or 3 months later, and the current value has gone up or the cost is up, you're better off accounting at the current market value, which typically is the last purchase price. So a lot of people like using this one. So we take our our 9 units, multiply it by $1.40, gives us a closing inventory of $1.60. Cost of food issue, we come here, we take our goods available for sale minus our closing inventory, and end up with $66.30. And here we have yet another value. So a key thing when looking at inventory valuation, it's really important to realize that for each one of the different ways you can value inventory, you're going to end up with a different closing inventory and you could end up with a different closing inventory and a different cost of food issue, which could have a ripple effect as far as the profitability for your establishment, depending on how you evaluate inventory.